How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to show you what it's like to drive the all-new Tesla Cybertruck from a first-person point of view. Arguably the most controversial vehicle of all time has finally hit the streets, and today we're going to take it out for a drive. Currently, the Cybertruck is available in 3 different configurations. Starting at $61,000, you can get the rear-wheel drive only. That comes with 250 miles of range, 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. Then when we move up to a base price of $80,000, you can get the dual-motor all-wheel drive, which has 600 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. At the top of the range, we've got the Cyber Beast, the tri-motor 845 horsepower Cybertruck that does 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds and the quarter mile in 11 flat. The Cybertruck is made from extremely tough stainless steel. It can actually survive 9mm gunshot rounds. The windows themselves can survive a 70-mile-an-hour baseball thrown right at the window. This is the world's largest windshield and also the world's largest windshield wiper. Apparently, when they designed the windshield wiper, having it right there actually improved the coefficient of drag at the front end of the vehicle. Coming around the front of the Cybertruck, one of the coolest design elements of the vehicle is this daytime running light bar. And from the factory, you can even get an extra light bar that illuminates up to 5 football fields away. You'll notice the actual headlights themselves are lower down right here. Now, because it's an EV, we even have a front trunk. There's a little button you press right there, and it automatically opens up to reveal extra storage space and a nice little Cybertruck logo. Now, if we come around to the side of the Cybertruck, you'll notice there are no door handles, unlike on the concept vehicle. This is actually 5% smaller in almost every direction from the concept truck, and it's about the same size as an F-150 Lightning. In order to open the doors, click on this button right here, and that pops open that front driver door. You'll notice the steering wheel is neither a yoke or a circle steering wheel. It's actually a squircle, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Go ahead and close this up. We've also got a rear door, which opens up right here. Now, you'll also notice the wheels themselves have these covers on them. They're actually removable. They're aero covers that help get longer range for the Cybertruck. 20-inch wheels with bespoke tires. If you look at this, these wheel covers actually come off, but they are morphed into the design of the tire itself, which both looks really cool, but also has me wondering how much is it going to cost if you get new tires, and can you have normal tires with these interestingly shaped aero discs? If we come around to the rear of the truck, things get even more exciting. We've got a tonneau cover right here that's electronically controlled and can withstand up to 300 pounds on top. So you can literally stand on top of your Cybertruck. If we click this button, it opens up that rear tonneau cover to reveal a 6-foot bed. But the nice part about the tonneau cover is when it's on, it basically creates an entirely locked environment. So unlike most trucks where you have stuff in the bed and anyone could steal it, you can put whatever you want back here, and when the truck is locked, all your stuff is safe. There's also some extra power outlets here. We've got a 120 volt and a 240 volt outlet, as well as some ambient lighting for the bed, and there's even a bottle opener. How crazy is that? Now, you will notice when this goes up, it covers that rear window, so you can't actually see out of the back of the Cybertruck. I'll explain how that works in a bit. All right, let's go ahead and hop inside the Cybertruck now. We've got an enormous glass panoramic roof, which makes the interior feel super open and airy, an enormous, largest ever 18.5-inch touchscreen display, as well as in the back, we've got a 9.5-inch touchscreen display for your climate controls, your music, etc. You also have a ton of headroom and legroom in the back of the Cybertruck, but these seats also fold up as well. If you pull on this tab right here, these fold upwards, and then you can store more stuff in the back of your Cybertruck. In the interior of the Cybertruck now, for the first time ever, we have ambient lighting in the interior, which is super nice. They also added that on the Model 3. The seats feel fantastic. It's very familiar Tesla, but a little bit different at the same time. The biggest difference is the steering. It's steer-by-wire, which we'll talk about when we get it out on the road. To the left, we've got window controls, as well as a release for the door, and a manual release, which I guess is a requirement. Down here, we have an awesome wireless charging pad that tilts your phone upright so you can actually see it. Now, let's talk about some of the display options. you can control the entirety of the truck, and the display is incredible. It works really fast. The graphics are phenomenal. If you roll down the window, watch this, it'll actually show on the display the window rolled down. Now, we've got ride height controls. You can get up to 17 inches of ground clearance. That's more than a Ford Raptor R, which only has about 11 or 12. You can also change the ride height from entry in its lowest position all the way up to high, and that has an 11-inch difference in the height of the vehicle. It actually makes an enormous difference. It's unbelievable looking. Now we can go ahead and exit that to go to the driving controls, dynamics mode. You can choose between comfort, sport, custom, and off-road. This is the dual motor all-wheel drive. If you have the Cyber Beast, it'll have a beast mode for that 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. Acceleration set to standard. You can also change your ride height controls as well. The rest of it is pretty much standard Tesla. In addition to the custom mode, there's also a new off-road mode. If we click that and go into the controls, now we have a new ride height adjustment called extract mode. That brings you up to that 17 inches of ground clearance, and it shows you the ride height right here. We even have a camera for the first time in the front of the Tesla so that you can see what's in front of you. We do, however, have a lights mode right here where you can change the color of the accent lights, which is pretty awesome. All right, guys, now it's time to take this out on the road and see what it's like to drive. All right, guys, behind the wheel of the Cybertruck now. To go ahead and put it into drive, you put your foot on the brake and swipe forward, just like the Plaid. And then to put it into reverse, you swipe backwards. Now we've got a nice rear view camera, because if you look in the rear view mirror, you can't actually see anything when that tonneau cover is closed. This actually runs at all times, apparently. We'll see that in a second. If you swipe forward, we have, for the first time ever in a Tesla, a front camera, which is super nice both for parking and because if you're off-roading and you're up at an angle, you're not going to be able to see over the front of the vehicle. So that's super nice as an off-roading feature. Now, I'm very curious to see what this steer-by-wire setup is like. It's the first time ever in a production vehicle. So let's see what that's like. I just maneuvered it a little bit around this parking lot, and even the slightest amount of inputs in the steering result in a very large amount of turning. So one of the craziest parts about the Cybertruck isn't the fact that it looks like a DeLorean from the future combined with a truck. It's the fact that it has the first ever production steer-by-wire setup. Apparently, they use steer-by-wire in airplanes and have for decades, but this is the first time in a production automobile. And the result is pretty fascinating, actually. We've got rear axle steering that can turn up to 10 degrees in the opposite direction of the front wheels. So it actually is very maneuverable around parking lots. I'm actually gonna pull in before we really get out on the road into this parking lot area here to show you how crazy the steer-by-wire setup is. We now have actual buttons on the steering wheel itself. Before it was these little haptic feedback controls that I got used to, but I could see why certain people weren't a fan of them. But I'm just giving it the smallest little inputs right here, and it turns the vehicle so quickly. I mean, it feels like it changes directions faster than a supercar because you don't have to give it any input whatsoever in the steering in order to turn left and right. I imagine it takes a little bit to get used to, but honestly, I kind of like it from the get-go. It's a very, very interesting sensation. Another really good thing that they did with the steering wheel is that we finally have an actual horn on the steering wheel instead of these little buttons where you mash it with your hand and you hope that in time, in case of an emergency, you actually hit the horn. It's nice that we actually have a production horn. Now, in the concept truck, they had this crazy kind of marble shelf in front of you. I imagine that would be horrible for glare. It also just looked kind of odd. I actually really like the layout of this front dash. The windshield is absolutely enormous. As I mentioned, it's the largest piece of glass, largest windshield ever to be put in a car. There's a lot of records with this Cybertruck. Same with that windshield wiper. Interestingly, the Cyber Beast comes with an Alcantara dash, and we were looking at the Cyber Beast down there compared to the all-wheel drive dual motor one, and I actually kind of like the look of this dash more than the Alcantara for some reason. The quality of the Alcantara looked a little bit iffy, although I believe that's VIN number 5, so maybe it's a car that's super early in the build cycle and it'll get better over time. It also had some Alcantara bits on the steering wheel, whereas I much prefer the leather on this Squircle than having those little bits of Alcantara. But man, look at this. Look at all of these Cybertrucks down there. there was actually the most ever in the world next to each other. I believe it was 6 or 7 of them at one meet, which is a pretty cool thing. Now you can see that little mini feed right there behind us. You can see, because, well, you can't see anything in that rear view mirror. The amount of attention that you get in the Cybertruck is pretty much unlike anything else I've ever driven. The only thing that came close is when I drove a Bugatti Chiron in the middle of Miami. I pulled it over at a gas station and it was pretty darn chaotic. I mean, you pretty much would want to fill up at home if you had a car like that, because you got to be friendly and show off the car and let people see it. Otherwise, people are going to think you're just a total jerk in your expensive car. But at the same time, if you have things to do and you're in a rush, it can be pretty crazy. This was wild. Filming it for just a brief period of time, the amount of people that pulled over to take pictures and look at it because they had never seen one before was pretty wild. But to be expected, because there haven't been that many produced yet of the Cybertruck. Eventually, with over 2 million orders, it's going to be pretty hilarious to see potentially 2 million, let's say only half take delivery, 1 million Cybertrucks on the road. Can you imagine just seeing, I mean, even those 7 at the same time on the highway next to each other is an absolutely ridiculous feat. We're gonna go ahead and turn in here. Show off that turning radius again. I mean, it has a very impressive turning circle. That's actually ridiculous for a truck. And it's very easy to drive. Nice Gallardo right there. Good visibility. Anyone could drive this thing. And then when you step on it, even the dual motor 600 horsepower one, 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, it actually is pretty quick. Obviously, it's not Tesla Plaid levels of speed, but this is an absolutely enormous truck. The crazy part is it weighs a good 2,500 pounds less than something like a Hummer EV. So despite the fact that it's big, it slows down a lot faster and it accelerates faster in beast form than a Hummer EV by a significant margin. And it comes in a little less expensive than a Hummer EV. I think if you're gonna compare the two, there's a no-brainer. This is definitely the car that I would go for. I'm impressed with the Cybertruck. I ordered one 4 years ago. I'm hoping that eventually it comes soon, because I think this is one of the ultimate daily drivers. The fact that you can power your house from the power outlet in the back of the truck bed is absolutely ridiculous. It's got 11.5 kilowatts of power. You can also charge another Tesla that's low on battery. If somebody was stranded right here with low battery, you could help them out. It's easy to drive. The steering wheel, you're gonna get used to it really, really quickly. And overall, I am very, very impressed. We'll go to the dynamics panel right now. Let's go to sport driving mode. Acceleration, standard. You can even do a custom driving mode setup, which is pretty cool. Ride and handling is relaxed. Let's check out what it's like with focused. I'm curious. Wow, it actually corners pretty flat for a big truck. I thought there was gonna be a substantial amount of body roll, but it actually stays really flat. That's pretty impressive. Tesla does such magic with their suspension work. I can feel the suspension feels a lot firmer in the focus mode than if we were in the relaxed mode. So it's pretty cool to have that kind of two-faced car, and you can tone down the acceleration if you want. If your friend or your grandma or somebody gets in the car, you can put it into chill mode so it doesn't accelerate out of control. Let's put it into comfort drive mode and see what that's like. Now, apparently, these haven't been being delivered yet with autopilot, which is interesting. Not sure. Some people have been saying it has to do with the rear axle steering. I'm not sure what the exact reason is, but hopefully they do an over-the-air update and then you can get autopilot on the car. I did find that very unique. Perhaps it has to do with the steer-by-wire, obviously a new technology, having that 48-volt architecture, which it's pretty funny. Tesla sent a manual, apparently, to all of the auto manufacturers on how to create a successful 48-volt architecture vehicle. I mean, can you imagine sending basically an FU to all your competitors? Like, this is how you should do it. It would help you out, and the entire car manufacturing industry needs to move to 48-volt. So it's either an FU or it's like the most generous gift ever, because they pretty much open source everything, and it's improving the entire car community. Eventually, you're going to be able to charge, I believe, Rivians and a couple other car companies at the Tesla supercharging stations, which is super cool and honestly insanely generous of Tesla to do that, because really that's one of the main draws with Tesla is the supercharging network. And one of the main takeaways from other manufacturers, they don't have to let people do that, but it's pretty cool that they are. Even still, even if I could charge a Hummer EV or another vehicle using Tesla's supercharger network, I think this is the way to go. I mean, the looks are polarizing. I know some people hate it, some people love it. I'm on the bandwagon of liking the way that it looks. Reinvented the shape of a truck, and that's a pretty difficult thing to do considering every other truck, save for maybe the Hummer EV, looks exactly the same. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I'll leave you with a little bit of acceleration, but there's not much to hear in the Cybertruck. All right guys, I look forward to seeing you next video.